Did you know a real-life serial killer wrote a horror novel that mirrored his own crimes? The story is so bizarre, so chilling, it sounds like something straight out of a movie. But I assure you, it's all terrifyingly true. This is the tale of how a man's twisted fiction became his gruesome reality, and how the words he wrote on a page became a blueprint for murder. Imagine finding a book, a work of fiction detailing a series of brutal crimes. Now imagine discovering that the author isn't just a writer with a dark imagination, but a cold-blooded killer, and the story you're reading is his confession. This is the story of Harvey Robinson. His case isn't just about the crimes he committed. It's about the mind behind them, a mind that chose to document its own descent into darkness through the pages of a novel titled The Vicious Vet. To understand this story, we have to go back to Allentown, Pennsylvania, in the early 1990s. The community was gripped by fear. A predator was on the loose, targeting women in their own homes, a place where they should have felt safest. The attacks were brutal, seemingly random, and left a trail of terror that had everyone looking over their shoulder. The police were baffled, chasing shadows, with no clear motive and very few leads. The attacker was like a ghost, striking and disappearing without a trace, leaving behind only devastation and a community paralyzed by fear. Who was this monster, and what was driving him? The answer was hiding in plain sight, in the most unexpected of places, within the mind of a young man named Harvey Robinson. On the surface, Harvey might not have seemed like a monster, but beneath that exterior was a darkness that was about to be unleashed. Before the police even knew his name, before he became the prime suspect in a string of horrific crimes, Harvey Robinson was doing something truly unsettling. He was writing. He wasn't just journaling or scribbling random thoughts. He was crafting a detailed narrative, a horror story. He titled it The Vicious Vet, a story about a Vietnam veteran who returns home, his mind shattered by the horrors of war. This fictional character becomes a predator, stalking and attacking women. The book described the attacks in graphic detail, the methods, the terror of the victims, the psychological state of the killer. It was a work of pure, dark fiction, or so it would seem. The crimes in Allentown continued, each one more brazen than the last. The police were desperate. They had DNA evidence from the crime scenes, but it didn't match anyone in their databases. The attacker was a phantom. Then, a breakthrough. A woman who survived an attack gave a description that led police to a young man they'd questioned before, but had no reason to hold. Harvey Robinson. This time, they had enough to get a warrant for his DNA, and when the results came back, it was a match. The ghost had a face. When investigators searched Robinson's apartment, they expected to find evidence, maybe a weapon or stolen items. What they found instead was far more disturbing. They found the manuscript, page after page of The Vicious Vet. The fictional attacks described in the book, the methods used by the vicious vet, the details of the crimes, they were eerily similar, almost identical, to the real-life attacks that had been terrorizing Allentown. The line between fiction and reality had completely blurred. Was the book a confession? Was it a fantasy that he decided to act out? Or was he documenting his crimes, reliving them through his writing? The manuscript became a key piece of evidence, a chilling window into the killer's psyche. It was as if Robinson was daring the world to see what he was capable of, hiding his monstrous truth within the pages of a story. Let's dive deeper into the parallels. In the novel, the killer targets specific types of women in their homes. In reality, Harvey Robinson did the same. The book describes specific methods of entry, of subduing the victims. These methods mirrored the real crime scenes with chilling accuracy. The fictional killer in the book felt no remorse, only a cold, calculated drive. When Robinson was caught, he displayed a similar lack of emotion, a detachment that was truly frightening. It was a case of life imitating art, but the art itself was a product of a killer's mind. The trial was a media sensation. How could a jury process this? Here was a man who not only committed these terrible acts, but also had the audacity to write them down, to fictionalize his own rampage. The prosecution used the manuscript against him, arguing it was a clear blueprint for his crimes. They portrayed him as a predator who planned his attacks with meticulous detail, first on paper, then in real life. The defense tried to argue it was just a story, a dark fantasy from a troubled mind, not a confession. But the similarities were too stark, too numerous to be a coincidence. Imagine being a juror in that courtroom, holding the manuscript in your hands, reading the words, and then looking at the evidence from the crime scenes. The fictional account and the real-life horror were almost indistinguishable. The book was a direct look into the abyss, a journey into the thought process of a serial attacker. It wasn't just evidence, it was a psychological roadmap of his depravity. Harvey Robinson was found guilty and sentenced to death, later commuted to life in prison. But the story doesn't end there. What drives a person to not only commit such acts, but to document them in this way? Was it arrogance, a belief he would never be caught? Was it a need to feel powerful, to control the narrative of his own crimes? Or was it something even more disturbing, a complete disconnect from reality, where the lines between his dark fantasies and his actions had ceased to exist? This case forces us to confront the nature of evil. It's not always a shadowy figure lurking in the dark. Sometimes it's the person sitting at a desk typing out a story. The case of Harvey Robinson is a chilling reminder that the most terrifying monsters are real, and sometimes they even leave behind a written record of their evil. The manuscript of The Vicious Vet remains one of the most disturbing pieces of evidence in the history of true crime, a novel written by a killer where every word is stained with the truth of his actions. It's a story you'll never forget. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as unsettling as I did, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the darkest corners of true crime. And hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next video. Stay safe out there.